I would. Good evening, everybody. Yes, as luck would have it, we had a few technical glitches, but we are strong working women and we've overcome those. So we are delighted to have all of you tonight. My name is Michelle Cavallo. I am the president of BPW Florida. My day job is with Duke Energy. I've been with Duke Energy for 35 years. And if you are not speaking, if you could go on mute, just because we're getting some funky background. Thank you so much. I have been a member of BPW for a long, long time and I've been a local president and I've been state president. I'm just ending a 2-year term in June. So, gosh, what you guys are going to talk about tonight is so, so important. And I can tell you it's something we struggle with. And well, I know I'm not going to steal any thunder. I just want to give applause to Sheila and her program committee because I think this is going to be an extraordinary conversation. You're in really good hands with Jerry as your moderator, and we're super delighted to have our guests tonight and honored to listen in on a subject that is so top of mind for all of us. That we love BPW. And we're just so looking forward to your conversation tonight. So again, to everybody, to those I know, to our guests, I just want to say welcome. And I'll turn it over to Sheila. I don't know, Jerry, who's next? You're on mute, Jerry.
See, I followed directions and muted and then totally forgot. So good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jerry Evans. I am a current member of BPW St. Petersburg Pinellas. I am a past state president of BPW Florida, and it is my absolute pleasure to moderate this program this evening. I am going to give you a couple of ground rules so that you can do it while you can pay attention early on, and then we're going to turn it over to the panelists for some introductions. The really only one ground rule is, well, there's two. One, keep yourselves muted so that we don't get any background noises or feedbacks. Number two is if you have a question that you'd like to ask one of the panelists or all of the panelists, please put it in the chat box. We're not going to do verbalized Q&A. I will be pulling questions from the chat box as we go through the moderation of the panel questions. If it is for one particular panelist, please put that in your question. So in other words, if you're sending me a question, say, for Sheila. If you don't have any names, then I will assume that it is for all three panelists. I thank you very much, and we're going to start our program now. Joetta, I'd like to start with you with the introductions, if you would, please.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jerry, and all of those of you that have joined in tonight. Thank you, Sheila, for organizing this program. I am Joetta Wycliffe of Kentucky. I have been a member of BPW since 1968. I have served my local organization in every office that is available. Also on the state level, I served as treasurer for second vice, first vice, president-elect, and then president. I continued my BPW service on the national level, here again as treasurer, second vice, first vice, president-elect, and then president in 1993. And to say that I am proud to have served with Bernie and Sheila is an understatement. They were the rock of all of our presidents, and I am very thankful for them. My professional background, as you have been told, has been in banking. I was in banking for 45 years. I sold the bank in 2007, just before the big crash happened. I guess is a good word to say. I don't know. But anyway, I was president and CEO of a community bank there in Kentucky, a small town outside of Lexington, Kentucky, right in the heart of the bluegrass. And I say welcome again.
Thank you. Sheila, we'll go to you next.
Yes, and I apologize that you can't see me, but I seem to be unable to do that on this laptop, which is not what I normally use on Zoom. I joined shortly after Joetta did. I joined BPW Virginia in 1979, and followed much of the same path that Joetta did at the local, district, and state level, holding multiple positions, secretary, treasurer, vice president, president-elect, and then president. On the national level, I did not aspire to, nor did I reach an officer level. But what I did do is I chaired the BPW Foundation for 2 years and was a member of the board for a total of 6. And as chair of the board, I was the only non-sitting or non-prior BPW USA president to hold that position. I stayed in, been in BPW since then, and in 2007, I moved to Florida, courtesy of my realtor, Tammy Sims, and joined the local BPW group in St. Petersburg, St. Pete Pinellas, and have subsequently been state president here a couple of years ago when we needed somebody to fill in when we found ourselves facing not having somebody in as state president. My career has really had 3 aspects to it. The first segment was in information technology and management consulting. I started in 1969 when I graduated from college, and that was a time when there were hardly any women in information technology. And that, frankly, is one of the reasons I joined BPW, was to meet other professional women. I did that for 24 years, and then for 4 years, I created a global workforce diversity initiative for a global management consulting firm. And then in 1999, I got my doctorate and subsequently taught graduate management courses for 13 years. I've been retired for, I've lost track, 12 years. 12 years now. So I'm actually, I guess, into my 4th phase, really, in terms of my career. But I'm delighted that I had the opportunity to get to know Joetta and Bernie, and delighted that we can reconnect here in Florida, even though that's not where we all started.
Thank you, Sheila. Bernie, would you like to do your introduction, please?
Unmute here. Yes, thank you so very much. I really appreciate you contacting me to do this. I have, I've participated in Zooms and listened, but I have never ever been a presenter. So I'm so excited about this. I can hardly stand it. But unlike the other girls, I took the business school route. From high school, I went to a year of business school, and then I started with General Motors in Pittsburgh. We had a plant there, and I started in accounting and went to labor relations and human resources and benefits, and I think in bad times when things got slow, I had the seniority. So thank you, union. I was able to keep my job, but they threw me all over the place. I was in receiving, and I was in purchasing, and I just kept bouncing around. So I knew the automobile industry very well. Thank you very much. But luckily, I was snatched up by the plant manager. A new guy came in from Michigan, and he was at a meeting. And I just happened, this is a cute story, my boss at that time didn't have time to get a coffee, and he was running into this meeting, and I said, "Oh, Murray, I'll get it for you." So I got him this coffee and knocked on this door, secretary, and I handed him, and I snuck his little coffee in there, and I came out. Well, the plant manager was in this meeting, and he said, "How come you're getting a coffee and I have a temporary person working for me?" So the plant manager, he had a temporary person. He said, so he called me up and said, "Get your butt up here." And so then I finished my career as the plant manager's secretary, but basically it's now the executive assistant. But so my career was, and then when when they wanted to put women in more diverse jobs, when equal rights came around and equal opportunity, I was the plant supervisor. I ran a production line in the plant. I made the bottoms of your trunk. It was called a pan. And I ran a line and supervised, 15, 16, 18 guys. I worked second shift. I worked third shift. So I have a multiple experience with that. But other than working, I just enjoy going to theater. I always enjoyed movies and theaters, and I volunteer for all kinds of stuff, and never been married, never had children, so I never had that involvement. So I was always available to do all kinds of things. So, but I do thank you both for you, Sheila, and Jerry, for getting in touch with me. And I have a picture. Can you see that? Look at that.
I can't see it.
That's you, my dear.
Oh, okay. But
That was in 1993. You visited my state.
Hold it up a little further, higher, please.
Closer.
Oh, yes, I see.
You see that?
I see.
And we were in Philadelphia. The girl in the middle there, I'm on the I guess left, and the girl in the middle was the director of that district. And I just happened to bring this down with me because I was going to show you if we go to lunch. But so I shared it with everybody. Thank you again.
Thank you, Bernie. I think you may have some of us calling you the next time we're buying a car to find out what we need.
Oh, I can get you a friend's discount.
So my first two questions are for all of the panelists. So I'm going to start, Bernie, with you as the responder, and then we'll go to Joetta and then Sheila, okay?
Okay.
So the first question is, please describe what you consider to have been your most important BPW moment.
I pored over this question because I did have an opportunity to know it ahead of time. And I couldn't think of anything specific. My installation as a state president was very significant. I remember that specifically. We always had like escorts when you got your introductions. And I had a friend who was a reservist in the military, and he came over with a couple of his buddies. And as we named each person in each office, this guy in his full military uniform escorted these ladies to their seats. Well, it was the best ever. The girls just talk about it all the time. So that was a highlight of my career as a BPW person. But I have formed numerous relationships. I've had friends, and I'm sure Joetta and Sheila have the same thing that I've had for 50 years or better that I met through BPW. And I really appreciate that association. But I do recall those military guys. And then at the national convention in North Carolina, I thought about that. I wasn't president yet. I was a vice president, and I was in charge of the state dinner. And you guys, Joetta and Sheila, know that we had our uniforms. You guys wore that identified every state, and I think that's something missing because there's no national. Anyway, I was in charge of this dinner, and we were in North Carolina, and I made arrangements. We were going to be outside on this roof, and it rained. We were out there, and it poured down rain. They said, "Oh, we haven't had rain in Charlotte in 6 weeks," and it poured on my dinner that I arranged. We were all scurrying inside with our food, and then we did remember when we went around the racetrack? Did you remember we rode the race cars at Charlotte, Joetta? So those are some of the memories, and most of them were from national conventions, being in Albuquerque and Reno and wait, I can't think. Well, I'll think of it. Detroit was a big, important time too.
Understood.
Did I go over my time? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. We don't have any time limits on the answers. Joetta, how about you?
Well, I think that the most important thing that in BPW for me was when I was elected to serve as the national president.
Yeah.
Leading an organization of 160,000 plus members was a challenge. It was rewarding. I learned a lot. as Bernie has said, we had some wonderful, wonderful training sessions. We had, and you met so many different people. I think that was the heartwarming part about it. And as Bernie has said, I have continued these relationships. Facebook has been a wonderful thing as far as us keeping up with all of the members that I have known. But I think that as I look back, there's so many things that, Jerry, it's hard to pinpoint anything other than just the privilege of being able to serve as the national president of BPW USA.
Awesome. And Sheila, how about you?
Well, like Joetta and Bernie, it was very difficult for me to come up with just one. So I'm going to give you several that stuck out in my mind.
That's okay.
The first time one that did was the one year we used to have delegates at large for the state to national conference, and you had so many depending upon how large your state federation was. And one of my first state conferences, I was muttering about everybody being so old. Now, they were probably in their 40s, but I was early 30s. And so to me, that seemed old. And so our state treasurer said, well, then next year you should run. So the following year, I had to give a presentation to the convention, the state convention. We had about 300 people present, and that was the most people I had ever spoken to. So it was a good experience for me. And at the time, I believe former Senator Rob, former Governor Rob, came to our state conference. But several years later, when I was going to be installed as state president, I guess he was governor then, because we asked Linda Robb to speak to our conference, and she had me come out to their home so that she could meet me and she could better understand what we were about and what I wanted to hear. And then when she came to speak, she did two things. She did not give a canned speech. It was clearly tailored to BPW Virginia. And she brought her daughter so that her daughter could be exposed to it. And I thought that was a highlight, that she would want to expose her daughter to BPW. And then the following year, when I was state president, we had our conference in Richmond. And I tried to shake things up a little bit. So we had stations instead of a sit-down dinner. And some of our members liked that, and some of them grumbled quite a bit because they had to get up and move around instead of simply being served. But one of our past national presidents, who was a past state president, Betty Forbes, served as our auctioneer for our live auction. And because we were in Richmond, an actor who portrayed Thomas Jefferson came to our conference, and she, with his permission, auctioned time off with him. And so everybody remembered that conference as being out of the norm and something different. But everybody, I think, had a good time. But quite truthfully, I think the thing that I remember most is how much I gained from speaking at BPW meetings and taking ID, individual development, when it included learning how to speak better. And my husband has said that BPW clearly helped me improve, and those skills carried over to the workplace. So that's what came to mind when I was reading your question.
Sheila, who was the actor?
Yes.
Who was the actor that played Thomas Jefferson?
I don't remember.
Oh.
No, I didn't, because that's something that happens in Virginia, because we have so many past presidents, whether it's in Williamsburg or Richmond. But he was good looking, I'll say that much.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Well, that's the important thing to remember, Sheila.
That's the best thing.
I will apologize to everyone. If you see me go off screen and mute myself, it's because I'm fighting a little bit of a cold, and I don't think you all want to hear me cough. So that's the reason you'll see those brief excursions by me. Sheila, we're going to start the next round with you. And so it'll go Sheila, Joetta, and then Bernie. Okay? Sheila, what do you
Okay.
believe made BPW relevant to working women, or for you in particularly, when you were a member with 5 years or less of membership?
I think there are really two parts to that. One part is the skills that we were able to develop in what I describe as a safe environment. So we could lead a team, we could lead an organization, we could learn to speak without it negatively impacting our work reviews. But we could get better in all of those activities and take those skills back to the workplace. Because I think early in one's career, much of it is about skill building. And so that was the first part of that. And the second part of it is advocacy has always been important to me, but I have never been one to be politically involved. And what I found very rewarding was knowing that I had an organization that fought for issues that I thought were important. And I became better informed about those issues. I had the opportunity when I was state president, that was a few years later, but it was an important opportunity anyway, to meet with our state senators. One was Republican, one was Democrat, and to see the differences in what they knew about the legislation that was relevant to us, and to understand how important it was. In one case, our senator spoke with us by himself without any staff present, and he was well informed on what our platform was. In the other case, our senator barely said a word and only his staff members spoke. And that was eye-opening for me because I had never interacted with anybody on a political level. So I think that was important also because, particularly since I was in a career where women were a very small fraction of the workforce, namely information technology. And so equal opportunity and equal pay were major issues. So that's what I think was important for me when I was starting out in my career.
Okay. Joetta, you're in the middle again.
That's fine. As I have told you, I joined BPW in 1968. And, I learned the importance of legislation, not only on the local level, such as the school board members, the mayor, the county judge, and the commissioners, and so forth, but also on the national level. I learned to lobby. And believe you me, that was important because we were always lobbying on the national level for some issue. And I learned how to do the public speaking. I don't think that I ever really mastered that, but I worked at it and I did it. I learned how parliamentary procedure, and you may think that that's not important, but you wait until you go to one of your locals meetings, and where that people are trying to get through some sort of legislation. It's very important that you know what that is. Also, I learned networking. And for those of you, I hope that you carry business cards with you at all times, because to do the networking, you can share with the people that you meet, and you'll make contacts that you may not use that contact today, but you probably will at some time. I learned to achieve my goals. I had set goals for myself. Not only as in the bank, I started out in the bookkeeping department and worked my way through every department there until I reached the office of being president. There's just so much that BPW can do. I know I'm going over time, Jerry. But
again, there is no time on these.
There is just so much that BPW can do, that you can learn, that you can network. And like I say, those contacts that you think that, oh, I'll never use that person's card. One day you will, and you may need that. I can't say enough about BPW. I get started on this and there's no end. I want for every woman that there is in this country to have the same opportunities that I have had, to go through the training that BPW offers, to listen to people. You know, lobbying, when I was taught lobbying in BPW, did I ever have to use that? I was president of the Kentucky Bankers Association, and we lobbied constantly on the national level. I testified through some of the committees for BPW and for the bankers. So it is never too late to learn how, because whether that you think that legislation is not important, it is important in the daily lives of each and every one of us. I said enough.
I think you and I need to be really good friends on that lobbying stuff. Bernie, how about you?
Well, it's hard to follow these two. I can tell you that right off the bat. But like Sheila and Joetta, I think the training, the first time that I had to go to the microphone at a district meeting, I broke out in hives. They were getting hot. They were getting cold washcloths and paper towels and putting them on my face because I was a mess. And that doesn't happen now because I with through BPW and getting in front of people and being able to speak and having confidence that you are knowledgeable enough about your subjects that you can talk about it. The lobbying issue and parliamentary procedure, I just cringe when I see the way they do some things today. And we do that. And I'm wondering if this is in our time, this was important to do. But with the younger people, I wonder, they don't seem like they need all that. Everything's fast. And I think that you're missing the boat some if you don't follow some sort of agendas and criteria and have proper reporting. There's nothing like going to I tell my people that in my district and things, when they go up one level, I said, you can't take for granted everybody's going to do everything. I said, when I was president, and I know Joetta can say the same thing, I had a legislation chairman. I called her ahead of time and I said, are you ready? Do you need me to do anything? You have to follow up and do all that background. I didn't like surprises. And I didn't want to say, okay, legislative chairman, and say no report. No report? I would have not put you on the agenda if you don't have a report. Why say that? And I guess this is like insignificant kinds of things, but it looks like you know what the heck you're doing. When you ask somebody something and they say they have no report, you obviously didn't follow up with them, or you had to call them and say, I want you to report on this, or I want you to talk about that, so that you can fill in the blanks. So meeting structure, parliamentary procedure, those, and education. And I agree with the politics of it, or my thing.
I couldn't agree with you all on that parliamentary procedure more. Thanks to Mary Giddens, my friend Tammy Sims, and also Sheila. I didn't know much about parliamentary procedure when I first joined BPW. I carry Robert's rules with me now. They live in my car.
Yeah. Jerry, could I just make a comment on that?
Of course.
I think I told you this, but I think it's, I was, like I say, I was president of the Kentucky Bankers Association, but I also served on our insurance board that was, I had insurance for all of the banks all across the United States. I was in a meeting in Oklahoma City, which was the corporate headquarters for the insurance company. And I was the only woman at this board meeting. These men, they kept talking and beating the subject to death. And finally, I just said, Mr. Chairman, I call the question. Dead still. They didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
They had no idea, even though that they had an attorney sitting right there at the desk. Finally, I said, would you all like me to explain my motion? It was unreal.
Yeah.
I
Who
don't
are
understand.
you? You're some upstart woman here trying to tell us how to run our meeting.
Well,
That's
thank
just a
Jerry,
little tidbit.
Jerry,
Yes.
sorry, I was trying to figure out how to raise my hand
That's okay.
electronically,
Oh, just
and I
speak
couldn't
up.
figure out how to do that either. So,
It's okay.
if
Just
somebody
speak up,
was
Sheila. It's good.
Sorry, I
okay.
interrupted.
No, two things that came to mind listening to Joetta and to Bernie. One of the things that happened belonging to BPW relatively early in my career, or soon after, within several years of my joining BPW, was that I got into a situation at work where I was in over my head and I got removed from the position that I was in. The day we were driving down to state conference, wherever state conference was, or the day before. And when we met at the person's home that was going to be driving, she had a bouquet of flowers for me, and the others just gave me hugs. And so I think that support and that sisterhood is something that is very unique to BPW. And I haven't felt it elsewhere, and I have always found it in BPW. At the same time, we had to fight with, or at least I did in the career that I was in that was so male dominated. One boss said to me, he said, I don't know why you're spending so much time in that organization. We don't get any business out of it. Because his sole focus on professional associations or organizations was that it would bring business to our organization, not that employees would learn from it or benefit from it. It was strictly a bottom line, can you bring any business? Fortunately, I didn't listen to him, obviously, which is why I'm a member all these many years later. But I think we should acknowledge, especially for people that are women that are early in their careers, they're going to have, my guess is, that same kind of negativity in terms of joining a woman's organization today as I encountered 30 years ago.
Interesting. I can't say that I would necessarily disagree with you, Sheila. Joetta, we're going to move on to individual questions.
Okay.
So, as a member at large in Florida and as a member of your local in Kentucky, what do you think are two things that each organization does that will continue to keep them relevant?
Well, I think that as being a new member of the Florida Federation, which Sheila and Bernie have been after me for several years, but
well, I'm glad they succeeded.
Well, you keep me informed through your newsletter and the programs that you have and the current legislation here in Florida. It's very important that I stay abreast, even though I'm retired, of what is happening and what is working in the lives of working women. In Kentucky, my role is the BPW vice state president. You know, I serve as the corporate memory. I've been around a long time. And here again, this is something that is very relevant. But in both organizations, both federations, I think it's so important that you continue with the scholarships. The scholarships for women, young, middle-aged, older, whatever, that they can learn more. They can go through training. They can advance themselves in their duties in the workforce. It's just I think both organizations are very important to me at this present time.
Wonderful, thank you. Bernie, these questions are similar, but because you all come from different areas of the country. But Bernie, what differences do you see between your Pennsylvania local and your Florida local that may hinder them from being relevant moving forward?
Boy, I wish I would have some kind of light bulb go off that could help me with keeping membership. It's a constant battle. I have the same issues here as I have in Pennsylvania. Now, my group in Pennsylvania, I've been the president forever because nobody else wants to do it. Oh, you do such a good job. I say to them, do you realize that we have, we are out of our bylaws. We are not following this. Oh, well, that's okay. I said, I could kill over tomorrow. None of you want to step up and do this. And I see the same thing. They're beating the bushes down in Englewood, Venice. Nobody wants to step up into these roles. It's not that difficult, but they don't want to do it. My group in Pennsylvania, in Western Pennsylvania, is a renegade group because we are very, very progressive in my group, and we are very politically oriented. We have a political talk every time we go there. Our state officers currently are very conservative, so we're bucking heads. My group almost left because they revised our legislative platform at the state level to change the wording on reproductive freedom. And I thought my people were going to go off the deep end. I mean, I had to do everything I could do to keep them still being involved, because they were just beside themselves angry that they changed the wording and made it like women's health instead of reproductive freedom. And so, but other than that, it's basically the same thing. And I agree with Joetta. It's so important to keep these young people, and we invite ours back. We only give one because we're a little bit smaller, but we invite the parent. They come to the meeting. We invite them to come and tell us how they're progressing and blah, blah. We never hear from them. We give them the money and we never hear them back. And we try to keep them in the loop, but we can't drag them. We can't drag them in. And these are the young people that are going to keep the organization going. And I just don't know how to do it. The organization was viable for me in the 60s, Vietnam era and all that business with the Equal Rights Amendment and things. That was very, very important. But the young people today, we did all that work. We got all these benefits that they are now enjoying. Who ever heard of Casual Friday? It never existed. We didn't have that kind of thing. I mean, every day it was nylons, high heels, dress. We thought I was the renegade that caused to get pants, for us to wear pantsuits. One of our girls wanted to wear pants so desperately, and I told them, because I was in labor relations then. I said, if one of you comes in pants, your butt's going home. They'll just won't tolerate it. But if we all band together and we come in as a unit and we all wear pants, they can't send us all home because the damn plant will shut down. All the women aren't here. Excuse my French. So, and we did. We picked out a day. We all showed up in pants. And I'm telling you, we started at 8 o'clock. 8:05, there was a major staff meeting. The bells were ringing all over the building. They didn't know what to do with us because we all wore pants on the same day. Then they came down with the criteria. It had to be a pantsuit. You couldn't wear jeans, that kind of thing. But as a group, if women stick together and we keep moving forward, we can do the things that are going to make things better for us. But I just don't think that the younger guys appreciate the efforts that we made early on.
There's definitely some truth in numbers making it harder to do things or easier to make things change. So Sheila, you were previously the president of BPW Virginia and more recently the president of BPW Florida. What differences or similarities do you see in those two state federations that made them relevant to working women?
Well, probably the most obvious difference between the two state federations is that BPW Florida still exists and BPW Virginia doesn't.
And I think I was thinking more from the time frame where it did exist.
No, I know, but I think that's an important perspective to keep in mind, since everybody on the call might not understand that BPW Virginia no longer exists. In the good days, programs and advocacy were paramount, and people learned and they were educated on different topics. Our members learned skills. They progressed through leadership positions or committee chairs. And what unfortunately happened in BPW Virginia is we could no longer get individuals to take state office. They simply weren't willing to do that. That happened around the time I moved to Florida. And as a result, I would say we had not done, in hindsight, a good enough job grooming successors and mentoring those who could, in fact, move into leadership positions. What I would say, unfortunately, is I see a similar pattern happening here in BPW Florida at both the state and the local level. And so I think we need to focus significantly on ensuring that we are grooming our successors and training them and helping them and educating them. And that the focus needs to be on development of our existing members and producing good programs, not on increasing the numbers of members, because all of the studies of membership organizations indicate that when you focus on simply increasing the numbers of members, you lose sight of why people join the organization. You have to find out what's important to the individuals. In BPW Virginia, we had LOs who met for breakfast, at lunchtime, and at dinner time. So we tried all of those options to see what was most relevant. And one of the things that I learned about Virginia, which was not a home state for me, I originally come from Massachusetts, was that Northern Virginia was very different from Southern Virginia. Northern Virginia was much more urban. Yeah. And what we took as a normal cost for events was astronomical to those who were in Southern Virginia. Yeah. And I see some of the same thing here in Florida. And I think we do try in both cases to be very mindful of it. I think another similarity, which we here in Florida need to be careful of, is that in Virginia, the last several years, almost all of our state officers came from one or two LOs in Northern Virginia. And so the LOs and members in the Southern Virginia said, it's all you Northerners that are running things. And as much as we tried to get members from the Southern LOs in Virginia to be state officers, we just couldn't do it. I think when I see how many come from one of our LOs now in Florida, we have to be careful that we don't fall into that same trap. Yeah. So I think there are lessons that can be learned from what happened to Virginia so that that doesn't happen in Florida. But at their best, both organizations produced wonderful programs, provided great training opportunity. BPW Florida was much larger than BPW Virginia. But at least we still exist today. That's the good news.
I will agree with that. That is good news. Now, I have a few other questions, but I did remind everybody to put in their questions in the chat box. And there's two that have come up that I'm very intrigued with. And in an interest of time, even though there is nobody that they're specified to, but in an interest of time to try to get both of them answered, I'm going to direct them to a particular panelist. So actually, Joetta, you're going to go up first because you talked about how important the scholarships are. So the question is, how did you distribute scholarships at the local level or state level or national?
Okay, there was we have a committee at the local level and also the state level, and of course then the national level. And there were applications that were submitted. They were gone over by this committee, and then they were discussed. And sometimes it got very heated about who should get this and who shouldn't and who was deserving and all of this. But in the long run, the decision was made, the scholarship was awarded, and the person persevered.
Awesome. One quick question on that. Your committees, were they made up of just any member who wanted to be on the committee and or was there a particular criteria like a past president or something along those lines?
That what we did in the local level, they were outside. There were people in the community that served on the, and then of course the president always served as the ex officio, so she knew what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, I thought it was best, especially in a small community, that you have outside people who made up this committee. Now on the state level, that was a little different. On the national level, there was a committee of BPW members that did it. But all in all, it works. And don't stop, please, please, whatever you do.
Ours is practically the same way. I have a woman who's the chairman. She contacts the school, sends the counselor at the school all the paperwork, and then they announce it. And then somebody comes by and they give them the form, and then we review the applications. And we make a point, and it's good because I'm retired now. They have like an assembly at our local high school, and I always make sure I go so that they see that we are out there. You know, we have. I always get a big check. You know, you get it from Amazon, this big check, and we hand it to them at this assembly for all the awardees, and then we do it. We give them the actual money at our meeting because my members want to see this, meet this person, and then we invite a parent to come with them, a mother or father or whoever is around to come with them to our meeting, and we treat them to the dinner when we give them. But it's the same kind of concept. Our state scholarship is handled through our foundation, and that's another whole setup of different people that handle it, and you have to get the application on the website, and then from there the foundation committee peruses, and they usually try to get one outside person, somebody in industry or some teacher or something to be like to break a tie or whatever,
But don't forget. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Go ahead.
Don't forget your own members.
Yeah.
Your own members many times needs a little bit of help to go to a training session, to go to a seminar. Don't forget your own members.
Yeah, we did that.
Point,
we did that at one point. We gave it to a re-entry woman, but then we had a hard time tracking them down because we had to go to the college then, and sometimes when you're a night school student, you don't have that same interaction with counselors and stuff, and so we didn't have the participation. But with the high school kid, we can use the school counselor.
Understood. I'm going to ask this next question, and I'm going to let whoever chimes in first answer it because I'm not sure which of the three of you is going to want to chime in first. So, Bernie, you talked about a challenge with changing your public policy platform. I know Florida has recently undergone a big challenge with theirs as well for a very similar reason.
Yeah.
So the question is, we continue to get pushback on our public policy platform.
Yeah.
Those who want stronger language and more action and those who don't. How do we find the right balance?
Boy. I wished I could give you an answer because my group just decided they weren't going to go to the district meetings anymore. They were vocal. We have a weekly online newspaper, and they sent in like little notes and things to that saying that they didn't want to participate. They didn't want to support stuff if they weren't going to continue with what our platform should be and the issues that we should be working to. That's a real tricky thing. It's like the whole country. The whole country is so severely divided. It never used to be that way. It used to be more middle. Now you're either over here or you're over here. There's no give, and it's creating a problem. There's no doubt about it. I wished I had an answer for it.
Sheila, any thoughts from you?
Well, the BPW Florida members know that this is something that has come up recently in our state federation. Several conferences ago, there were several members, a number of members from a couple of LOs who are in quote red districts, who were complaining that they were never heard, that they were sidelined whenever they tried to challenge the public policy platform. So what I said was, fine, I'll make the motion to change it. And so at least it will get debated. And it got debated. We did not remove the language that some found offensive. The downside, even though that language had been there for many years, the downside of my ensuring that they had a voice was that they chose to end their membership and disband the LOs. Yeah. And so that was very unfortunate, in my opinion. I understand that some think it should be stronger and some don't like it. But it seems to me that if we can come together and talk about the issues, and we used to have at the national level a legislative day or an opportunity for people to talk at length about public policy instead of the limited time in Florida that we give to it now. Maybe we need to reintroduce something like that, where members do nothing except talk about public policy and what's on our platform, because it is something that is driving a wedge between us. I think we've made progress in the last year or two by putting out a draft to the LOs for members to review in advance, but that's not the same as actually having outside facilitators find ways to find common ground around the issues. As Michelle would say, building bridges across those differences. So I think maybe one of the things we need to do is to accept the fact that there isn't unanimity about this and to have open dialogue about it.
Understood. Thank you. I'm hoping that the members will be a little generous, seeing as we started a little bit late, that we're going to end just a little after 7, but not too much. So we have another really good question, but it also kind of ties into my wrap-up question. So I am going to ask the final wrap-up question, which is to all three of you, and we'll go Joetta, Bernie, and then Sheila this time. And your wrap-up question is, what do you believe is one primary thing that any and all BPW organizations should make sure that they're doing to be relevant or to stay relevant moving into the future?
I think that you've got to consider each member, what their needs are, what their goals are, how to help them to achieve those. It's not something that we can fit everyone into the same box, but we can help the members, and we have got to be able to show the members what BPW can do for them. You know, I have a philosophy that I always said is, if the person who follows me does a better job than I did, then I have done my job.
Yeah.
And it's, we can't be afraid of the next person, showing us up, so to say. I just.
That's a really good philosophy.
Well, it's what I've always believed.
That's wonderful. I appreciate that very much. Bernie, how about you?
I think that you have to keep everybody engaged. It seems to me that if you're doing the meeting and you don't involve everybody, I'll say, oh, Sue, why don't you lead us in the call today, or something like that. I send out the agenda ahead of time. And I'll put her name down, so when she opens her email, she knows she's going to have to get up and say it. So I try to make sure that everybody is included. And I'm a big proponent of questionnaires. They always say, oh, you're lucky to get 10% response. But I think if you would just have a couple of questions and send it out and say, what would you like from the meeting? What do you not like about the meeting? Always you probably get the same thing. Oh, the meal's too expensive, or I don't like the speaker, or it's way too long. How come we're so long? My group doesn't want to have board meetings, and that ticks me off because then they want to sit there and discuss some little picayune little thing. And I always tell them we should discuss this ahead of time, and then all we do is get the action, and then we can move on, and the meeting wouldn't be so long. But that's and I think it's important that you do have those board meetings and iron out all the glitches, and then so that your presentation, your meeting, your speaker, your dinner can be much more efficient and more conducive to everybody's timeline, time frame.
You have reminded me of one of my one of my best friend's favorite comments. Let's not do committee work at this meeting.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah.
Most of my local members, I have heard a number of us say that.
I do think that it's important that that all of your members serve on some sort of committee. Give them some opportunity to be a part of the organization.
Yeah.
Agreed. Sheila?
Well, there are two things that I think are important. And the first is programs that are relevant to multiple working women in different professions at different stages of their career. I think trying to focus or make sure you cover personal, political, and professional throughout the year in terms of topics, rather than focusing on just one of those areas, gives you a greater likelihood that all of those attending will be intrigued enough to come and hear about it. Even though all three of us are retired on this panel, that doesn't mean that we're not engaged in the community at large, and that we aren't still learning. And I think we need to keep that in mind. And I think the second part is that we need to consider how people are learning today, and it's not just in person. And so we need to use technology effectively to both reach out to people on social media, but also to deliver our programs. And frankly, hopefully we're doing that through the webinars that the state is putting on this current BPW year.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you to all three of you. I think that this is a really important conversation. I don't know that it should end with the ending of this panel discussion. I think that BPW being relevant and moving into the future as a relevant women's organization is important, especially in these times of conflict where, as Bernie says, it seems like you're either far right, far left. Mm-hmm. The statistics still show that the majority of us really are in the middle. It's just the two extremes that are getting all the airtime right now. So we need to learn how to take the air out of the room for them and give it back to those of us who are in the middle, I believe. But again, I do thank all of you for your time and for your considerations, the time you gave me as the moderator before the program, and for this wonderful experience during this panel discussion. Thank you so much. Michelle,
thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, listen, if you could see all the notes I took, I know it's been recorded, but I'm that old fashioned. I'm a notes girl, so I feel like I see you, Zelda. It reinforces as I used to do that in school as well. Listen, Joetta, Bernie, and our very own rock star Sheila, some great words of wisdom, and I learned so much. And Jerry, of course, as our moderator, who always does a fantastic job. This was, I mean, my heart is so full, really. I mean, there were some warm and sentimental moments. There were a lot of learning moments, and it gives me so much hope for the future. And really, all of you who are leaning in, I see a lot of our LO presidents here and committee members. And I know you all care deeply. We all care deeply. We just, I feel like over the last 105 years, BPW has ebbed and flowed, right? We've expanded, we've contracted, we've argued about public policy issues, but this is what I know about BPW. And I think Sheila really said it best when she said, I wrote it down and it kind of makes me teary, the sisterhood and the support. So I'll end us on that note and thank everyone for coming. Again, a big thanks to Jerry and Sheila for putting this together in your program committee. It was excellent, excellent. Loved it, loved every bit of it. Joetta and Bernie, join us anytime. We loved having you. Truly.
I need to discuss my membership, I think.
I'm going to
Please.
talk with Sheila and Chandra about you, Bernie.
Okay.
Joetta's already a member at large of Florida.
I might have to do that route, I think.
So those of you who have joined us, I just want to give a program committee plug. We have our next program on March 25th, which will be Equal Pay Day.
Oh, yeah.
We're not doing an unhappy hour because it's at noon, but please join us. You'll get more information. But I'm thrilled to announce that we have Professor Tara Newsom, who will be speaking to us regarding equal pay.
Oh,
So
okay.
thank you all again for your time this evening and have a wonderful night. Thank
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Joetta, we got to go to lunch.